The words came across the Christmas table like a slap. Clear, deliberate, loud enough for everyone to hear. Actually, Mom, I don't think you deserve a gift this year. I froze, my hand halfway to the wrapped package I'd brought for my son Brian. 20 people sat around that table. Brian's in-laws, his wife Ashley's entire extended family, their friends, all of them now staring at me. What? I managed. You heard me. Brian's voice was cold, rehearsed, like he'd been planning this. You don't deserve gifts, not after everything you've done. Ashley, sitting beside him, didn't gasp, didn't look shocked. She smiled, actually smiled, then laughed. A small, satisfied sound that told me she'd not only known this was coming, she'd probably orchestrated it. And I sat there, in front of 24 strangers, holding a present for my son, who'd just announced to everyone that I didn't deserve to give it to him. My name is Margaret. I'm 67 years old. I raised Brian alone after my husband died when Brian was 8. I worked 2 jobs to keep him in private school, sacrificed everything to give him opportunities, put him through college without loans, helped him start his business. And on Christmas Day, at his wife's family's dinner table, he told everyone I didn't deserve to give him a gift. This is the story of how I learned that you can give a child everything and still be made the villain. That public humiliation is a weapon some people wield deliberately, and that sometimes the people you love most will destroy you in front of an audience to prove their loyalty to someone else. Let me start at the beginning, so you understand how we got to that Christmas table. I'm Margaret Hayes. I've been a widow for 23 years. My husband Tom died in a car accident when our son Brian was 8 years old. After Tom died, I had 2 choices: fall apart or keep going for Brian's sake. I chose to keep going. I worked as an office manager during the day, waited tables 3 nights a week, did bookkeeping for a local business on weekends. Whatever it took to maintain the life Tom and I had built, to keep Brian in the private school he was attending, to make sure he didn't lose everything when he lost his father. I was exhausted all the time, but Brian had stability, had opportunities, had a mother who showed up to every school event and sports game even when I'd worked 16 hours that day. Brian was a good kid, smart, kind, close to me in the way kids who've been through loss together often are. We were a team, just the 2 of us against the world. He got into a good college. I'd saved money, not much, but enough. Combined with scholarships and what I could pay from my current income, he graduated debt-free. After college, he wanted to start a digital marketing business. He needed capital. I took out a home equity loan on the house Tom and I had bought together, the house I'd been carefully maintaining for 23 years. Gave Brian $40,000 to start his business. I'll pay you back, Mom, he promised. With interest. Once the business is profitable. I'm not worried about it, I told him. And I wasn't. This was my son, my investment in his future. The business did well, really well. Within 3 years, Brian was making 6 figures. Within 5, he'd opened a second office. He never paid me back, never mentioned it, and I never asked. Because he was successful, happy, building a life, that was payment enough for me. When Brian was 31, he met Ashley. She was 28, worked in PR, came from a wealthy family. Her parents, Richard and Susan, owned a chain of car dealerships. Money, status, the kind of family that took European vacations and had a lake house. I tried to be welcoming when Brian brought Ashley to meet me, cooked a nice dinner, asked her about herself, tried to connect. She was polite but cool, answered questions briefly, didn't ask me anything about myself, spent most of the dinner talking to Brian about places they'd been together, people I didn't know, inside jokes I wasn't part of. I told myself she was just shy, that she'd warm up once she knew me better. Brian and Ashley dated for 2 years. During that time, I saw less and less of my son. Dinners that used to happen weekly became monthly, then every few months, always with excuses. Ashley's family has this thing. We're going to her parents' lake house. Ashley wants us to try this new restaurant with her friends. Always Ashley's plans. Ashley's family. Ashley's preferences. When they got engaged, I was happy for Brian. Truly. Even though I'd barely gotten to know Ashley. Even though I'd been systematically excluded from more and more of Brian's life. I want to help with the wedding, I told him. Whatever you need. That's nice, Mom. But Ashley's parents are handling everything. They're paying for it. It's easier if they just coordinate. Easier. That word that means we don't need you. The wedding was extravagant, held at an exclusive country club, 300 guests, most of whom I didn't know. I was seated with distant relatives and my friend Carol, who I'd brought as a +1, not at the family table. That was reserved for Ashley's parents, her siblings, her grandparents. I was mother of the groom, and I was relegated to table 17. During the reception, Ashley's father, Richard, gave a toast, talked about Brian like he was already part of their family. We're so lucky to have Brian joining the family. He's the son we never had, the son they never had, as if I didn't exist, as if I hadn't raised him alone for 23 years. Brian didn't correct him, didn't acknowledge me in his own speech, just thanked everyone who made this day possible, without naming me specifically. I cried in the bathroom, then composed myself and got through the rest of the evening with a smile. After the wedding, things got worse. Brian and Ashley bought a house, a beautiful place in an expensive neighborhood, with money from Ashley's parents for the down payment, not with the $40,000 I'd loaned him years ago. That was never repaid, never mentioned, apparently forgotten. I was invited to see the house once. Ashley gave me a tour like I was a casual acquaintance, showed me the rooms she'd decorated, talked about future plans, never once asked if I needed help with anything, never offered to include me in their new life. I still worked, still lived in my modest 3-bedroom house, the house that now had a home equity loan on it because of the money I'd given Brian. But my son lived in a mansion, drove an expensive car, took regular vacations, and he never thought to ask if his widowed mother, who'd sacrificed everything for him, might need anything. The first Christmas after they married, I asked Brian what their plans were. "We're doing Christmas with Ashley's family," he said. "Her parents host this big thing every year. Family tradition." "What about me?" "We'll stop by on Christmas Eve for a bit." A bit. Not Christmas Day. Not the actual holiday. A brief obligation fulfilled before the real celebration with Ashley's family. They came by for 30 minutes on Christmas Eve, accepted their presents, made small talk, then left for Ashley's parents' lake house where they'd spend the actual holiday. I spent Christmas Day alone. That pattern continued. Every holiday, every birthday, every event that mattered. I got the scraps, the brief visits, the obligatory acknowledgement, while Ashley's family got Brian's actual time, attention, and presence. I tried to talk to Brian about it once. "I feel like I never see you anymore. Mom, we're busy. I have a business. Ashley has her career. We have obligations." Obligations. That's what I'd become. "I understand busy, but I'm your mother. Don't I matter?" "Of course you matter, but you're being kind of clingy. We're adults. We have our own lives." Clingy. For wanting to see my son more than a few times a year. This past year was the worst. I saw Brian maybe 4 times. Quick lunches where he checked his phone constantly. Brief visits where he seemed eager to leave. But I'd see social media posts. Brian and Ashley at Ashley's parents' house for Sunday dinners. At Ashley's brother's birthday party. At some charity event Ashley's family hosted. Always with them. Never with me. In November, I asked about Thanksgiving. "We're doing Thanksgiving with Ashley's family," Brian said. "Like always. Could I join you? I'd love to meet more of Ashley's extended family." Silence on the phone. Then, "I don't think that's a good idea, Mom. It's really just for immediate family." Immediate family. I was his mother. But I wasn't immediate family anymore. I spent Thanksgiving alone. Made a small turkey. Ate in front of the TV. Tried not to feel sorry for myself. Early December, Brian called. "Ashley's parents are hosting Christmas dinner this year. Big family thing. They've invited us." "What about me?" "Well, here's the thing. It's at their house. It's their guest list. And Ashley thinks it might be awkward to have you there since you don't really know everyone." Awkward. For a mother to attend Christmas with her son. "Brian, you can't be serious. I'm your mother. It's Christmas." "I know, Mom. But this is important to Ashley. And her family hosts this whole thing. We're just guests. We can see you a different day." "What different day? When has a different day ever actually happened?" "Mom, please don't make this difficult. We'll figure something out. Maybe you can come to our house for brunch or something the weekend before. Brunch. The weekend before, while he spent actual Christmas with Ashley's family. So I'm not invited to Christmas? I said clearly. You're choosing Ashley's family over your own mother for Christmas? It's not about choosing. Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. And you're choosing them. I have to go, Mom. I'll call you later. He didn't call later. 2 weeks before Christmas, I decided I wouldn't accept this. Wouldn't let myself be excluded from my own son's Christmas without trying. I called Brian. I'd like to come to Christmas dinner, even if Ashley's parents are hosting. I'm sure they won't mind one more person. I'll bring a dish. I won't impose. I just want to spend Christmas with my son. Long pause. Then, let me talk to Ashley. He called back that evening. Ashley talked to her parents. They said it's fine if you want to come. But Mom, I'm asking you, please don't make this weird. It's their house, their family. Just be polite, and don't make everything about you. Don't make everything about me. As if wanting to spend Christmas with my son was selfish. I'll be there, I said. Thank you for including me. I spent 2 weeks preparing. Bought a new outfit. Nothing too fancy, didn't want to look like I was trying too hard. Found a recipe for a dish I could contribute. Bought thoughtful presents for Brian and Ashley. Not expensive, but personal. Things I knew they'd like. And I wrapped a special gift for Brian, a photo album I'd made. Pictures of him growing up, his father, our life together, moments from his childhood. A reminder of everything we'd been to each other before Ashley. Christmas Day arrived. I drove to Ashley's parents' house, a massive place in the most expensive part of town. Cars lined the circular driveway. Clearly, this was a big gathering. I walked in carrying my dish and the presents. Ashley's mother, Susan, answered the door. "Oh, Margaret, you made it!" She sounded surprised, like she'd hoped I wouldn't actually come. "Thank you so much for having me," I said warmly. "I brought a casserole." "How nice. You can put it in the kitchen. Ashley will show you." Ashley appeared, smiled tightly. "Hi, Margaret. Follow me." She led me through a house full of people, at least 30 people. Ashley's extended family, friends, colleagues, all of them laughing, drinking, celebrating. Brian was in the living room with Ashley's father and brothers. He saw me, waved, didn't come over. "You can put your things here," Ashley said, gesturing to a coat closet. "Dinner's in about an hour. We're doing assigned seating, so just find your name card at the table." Assigned seating, of course. I put my presents under their massive Christmas tree, found a spot in the crowded living room, tried to make conversation with people I didn't know. Brian eventually came over. "Hey, Mom, thanks for coming." "Of course, it's Christmas. I'm so glad to be here with you." "Yeah, Ashley's dad wants to introduce me to someone. I'll catch up with you later." He walked away, left me standing alone in a room full of strangers. An hour later, Susan called everyone to dinner. The dining room had been extended with extra tables to accommodate everyone. Elegant place settings, fresh flowers, catered food. I found my name card. At the far end of the extended table, next to 2 of Ashley's distant cousins who barely spoke to me, Brian and Ashley sat at the main table with Susan, Richard, and Ashley's immediate family. Dinner was served. Turkey, ham, sides, everything beautifully presented. My casserole was nowhere to be seen, apparently not worthy of the main spread. After dinner, Richard stood to make a toast. "We're so grateful to have all of you here. Our family has grown so much this year. We're especially thankful for Brian, who's become like a son to us. We love having you as part of our family." "Like a son." Brian smiled, raised his glass, accepted the praise. I was invisible. Then came presents. Susan and Richard gave Brian and Ashley extravagant gifts. New skis, a weekend getaway voucher, designer items I couldn't begin to afford. Ashley's siblings exchanged expensive presents, laughed, took photos, and then Brian stood up. "I want to give a special gift to Susan and Richard for everything you've done for me and Ashley this year." He handed them a wrapped box. They opened it. Inside was a framed photo of Brian and Ashley with them. Professional shot. Beautiful. "You've been like second parents to me," Brian said. "I'm so grateful. Second parents, not me." His actual parent who'd raised him alone, who'd sacrificed everything, who was sitting at the far end of the table watching him claim another family as his own. Then it was my turn. I walked over with my presents, handed Ashley hers first, a nice scarf I'd picked out. She opened it. "Oh, thanks." Set it aside. Then I gave Brian his. The photo album. "I made this for you. It's our family. Your dad. Our life together. I thought you might want to have these memories." Brian opened it, flipped through a few pages. His expression was unreadable. Ashley looked over his shoulder. I saw her face change. Something cold. Brian closed the album, looked up at me, and said, in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "Actually, Mom, I don't think you deserve a gift this year." The entire room went quiet. All 30 people stopped talking, stopped moving, stared at us. "What?" I said, my voice shaking. "You heard me. You don't deserve gifts. Not after everything you've done." I felt like I'd been slapped. "What are you talking about? You've always tried to control my life, make everything about you. You guilt-trip me constantly. You can't accept that I have my own family now, and I'm done pretending it's okay." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. This wasn't true. None of it was true. "Brian," I started. "No, Mom. I need to say this. You made my childhood miserable after Dad died. Always working, never around. You were so focused on your own grief that you didn't see what I needed. And now you're trying to guilt me about spending time with Ashley's family, people who actually care about me, instead of sitting around feeling sorry for you." Every word was a knife, and 30 people were watching him stab me with them. "I worked so you could have the life you wanted," I said quietly. "I gave you everything. You gave me what? A mother who was never home? Who made me feel responsible for her happiness? Who can't let go and let me have my own life?" Ashley beside him smiled. That same satisfied smile. She'd heard this speech before, probably helped write it. And then she laughed. A small sound, but audible in the silent room. Everyone heard it. Everyone saw her enjoying my humiliation. I stood there, surrounded by strangers, my son's words echoing. And I had 2 choices: defend myself and create more drama, or leave with whatever dignity I had left. "I'm going to go," I said. I walked out of that dining room, grabbed my coat, and left. Nobody followed me. Nobody apologized. Nobody stopped me. I drove home in shock, sat in my driveway trying to process what had just happened. My son had publicly declared I didn't deserve gifts, had rewritten our entire history, had accused me of making his childhood miserable when I'd worked myself to exhaustion to give him stability after his father died. And he'd done it in front of 30 people, with his wife laughing. If you've ever been publicly humiliated by someone you love, had your character attacked in front of witnesses, had your sacrifices rewritten as failures, you know this feeling, the shock, the shame, the desperate confusion of trying to understand what just happened. Share your experience in the comments if you've lived through this. And if these stories help you feel less alone, please subscribe to Lindsay Stories. I spent Christmas night alone, crying, replaying every word, trying to figure out what I'd done to deserve that. The next day, my friend Carol called. I told her everything. "He's been manipulated," she said immediately. "That's Ashley's doing. She's turned him against you." "But why? What did I do to her?" "You didn't do anything. You're his mother. You're a threat to her control. Some women can't handle their partner having close relationships with anyone else, especially their mother." But the things he said, he really believes I made his childhood miserable? That I wasn't there for him? He believes whatever Ashley's told him. She's rewritten your history, and he's accepted it because it makes his exclusion of you easier to justify. I wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe Brian hadn't genuinely turned against me, that this was manipulation, not his true feelings. But he'd said those words. In front of everyone. He'd owned them. 2 days after Christmas, I got a text from Brian. "I think we need some space. I meant what I said. I need you to respect my boundaries and my family. I'll reach out when I'm ready." Space. Boundaries. The language of estrangement wrapped in therapy speak. I responded, "Brian, what you said at Christmas was cruel and untrue. I worked 2 jobs to give you a good life after your father died. I paid for your college. I gave you money to start your business. I don't deserve to be treated this way. He wrote back, "That's exactly what I'm talking about. You always throw your sacrifices in my face. Make me feel guilty for having a successful life. I'm done feeling bad for not being whatever you need me to be. Throw my sacrifices in his face." For stating facts. For defending myself against his lies. I didn't respond. What was the point? The next week I called him. It went to voicemail. I left a message. "Brian, I love you. I don't understand what's happening, but I'm your mother. Can we please talk about this?" He didn't call back. I texted, "Please, just talk to me. Help me understand what I did wrong." His response came 2 days later. "I told you I need space. Please respect that." Space. The death knell of relationships. The word people use when they're done but don't want to officially end things. January passed. No contact. I tried calling twice more. Voicemail both times. No return calls. February arrived. I sent a text. "I miss you. Please let me know you're okay." No response. March brought my birthday. Brian used to call every year. Send a card at minimum. This year, nothing. Not even a text. I sat alone on my 68th birthday and accepted that my son was truly gone. April brought an unexpected conversation. My neighbor Jean, whose son knew Brian from college, stopped by. "I heard what happened at Christmas," she said carefully. "I hadn't told anyone except Carol." "How did you hear?" "Ashley's been talking about it, telling people you crashed their family Christmas and caused a scene." My blood went cold. "What?" "She's telling people you showed up uninvited, made everything awkward, and that Brian finally had to set boundaries with you because you were being inappropriate." I couldn't breathe. "That's not what happened. Brian invited me, and then he humiliated me in front of everyone." "I believe you, but that's not the story Ashley's spreading." So not only had I been publicly humiliated, I was now being slandered. My exclusion rewritten as my fault. Ashley controlling the narrative. "Why would she do this?" I asked. "Because if she admits you were invited and Brian still attacked you, she looks bad. If she claims you crashed and were inappropriate, Brian looks justified and she looks like the protective wife." I felt sick. And people believe her? People believe what they're told, especially when it's presented confidently. And Ashley's very confident. I spent days furious, wanting to defend myself, to tell people the truth. But who would I tell? Ashley's friends and family who'd witnessed it already believed her version. My own friends knew the truth. Strangers didn't matter. The only person whose opinion mattered was Brian, and he wasn't listening. May brought another shock. I ran into Brian at the grocery store, literally turned a corner, and there he was. "Brian," I said. He froze, looked uncomfortable. "Hey, Mom. I've been trying to reach you. I know, I told you I needed space. It's been 5 months. How much space do you need?" "I don't know, as much as I need." People were walking past us, watching. I kept my voice low. "What you said at Christmas, it wasn't true. You know that, right? I didn't make your childhood miserable. I worked so you could have opportunities. That's your version. My experience was different." "Your experience?" "Brian, I was there. I know what I did. I know what I sacrificed." And there it is again. The sacrifices. The guilt. This is exactly why I need distance. I'm not trying to guilt you. I'm trying to understand how wanting a relationship with my son makes me the villain. You're not the villain, Mom, but you're not the hero either. And I'm tired of trying to live up to whatever you think I owe you. I don't think you owe me anything. I just want to be part of your life. Well, maybe I don't want you to be. Did you ever consider that? Those words hit like a freight train. Maybe I don't want you to be. My son didn't want me in his life, not because of something I'd done, just because he didn't want me. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll stop trying." I walked away, finished my shopping somehow, drove home, and I made a decision. I was done chasing Brian, done trying to make him see the truth, done waiting for him to value me. If he wanted space, he could have infinite space. I wouldn't reach out again, wouldn't call or text or try to explain myself. The ball was in his court. And if he never picked it up, I'd eventually learn to live with that. Summer passed. No contact. I saw social media posts occasionally. Brian and Ashley on vacation, at events, living their life, always with her family, never acknowledging mine. I started therapy in July, Found a counselor who specialized in family estrangement. Tell me about your relationship with Brian before Ashley, Dr. Martinez said. I did. Talked about how close we'd been, how he used to call me his best friend, how we'd survived his father's death together. And when did that change? When he met Ashley. Gradually at first, then completely after they married. This is a pattern I see often, she said. Some partners view their spouse's parent, especially their mother, as competition. They systematically alienate them, rewrite history, create conflict where none existed. But why would Ashley want that? Control. If Brian has a strong relationship with you, she's not his only source of support, validation, and family. Some people need to be everything to their partner, and they achieve that by eliminating other relationships. So this is her doing? She's likely the catalyst. But Brian is making his own choices. He's choosing to believe her narrative, choosing to exclude you. He's not blameless. That was hard to hear, but true. Ashley might have planted ideas, but Brian was the one who stood up at that Christmas table and publicly humiliated me. That was his choice. What do? I asked. You focus on yourself. Build a life that doesn't require his participation. Grieve the relationship you've lost. And understand that you can't control whether he eventually realizes what happened. So that's what I did. Focused on myself. Joined a book club. Started volunteering. Reconnected with old friends. And I grieved. Grieved the son I'd raised. The relationship we'd had. The future I'd imagined where I'd be a grandmother to his children, a continued presence in his life. That future was gone, and I had to accept it. December arrived again. Another Christmas approaching. Another year since that devastating dinner. I wondered if Brian would reach out, if the holiday would trigger some memory of our good times together. Christmas came and went. No message, no call, nothing. I spent it with Carol and her family. It was nice, but it wasn't my son. In January, I got an unexpected letter. From Brian. My hands shook as I opened it. Mom, Ashley and I are expecting a baby in May. I'm writing to tell you that we've made some decisions about our family going forward. We want our child to grow up in a stable environment, without the dysfunction and guilt that characterized my childhood. Therefore, we've decided it's best if you're not part of our child's life. This isn't about punishing you. It's about protecting our family. I hope you can respect this decision. Brian. I read that letter 5 times, each time hoping the words would change. My son was having a baby, my grandchild, and I was being explicitly excluded, not because I'd done anything to harm his child, but because he'd decided I was toxic, dysfunctional, a threat, based on a history he'd rewritten, a narrative Ashley had fed him, lies he'd chosen to believe. I called him. It went to voicemail. Brian, I got your letter. Please call me. We need to talk about this. He didn't call. I texted, You can't keep me from my grandchild based on lies about our past. What you're doing is cruel and unfair. His response, This is exactly why we're making this choice. You can't respect boundaries. You make everything about you. Our decision is final. Final. My exclusion from my grandchild's life was final. I showed the letter to Dr. Martinez. This is emotional abuse, she said bluntly. He's using your grandchild as a weapon, punishing you by denying you access to this baby. But I can't do anything about it. Legally? No. Grandparents' rights are limited. But morally? He's wrong. And someday he may realize that. And if he doesn't? Then you build a life that has meaning without him, as painful as that is. May came. Brian's baby was born. A girl. I found out through social media. Ashley posted photos. Our perfect little family. Meet Emma Grace. Emma Grace. My granddaughter, who I'd never meet. The comments were full of congratulations. Ashley's family celebrating, friends excited, and me excluded, erased, like I'd never been Brian's mother at all. I grieved Emma the way I'd grieved Brian, mourned a relationship that would never exist, a grandchild I'd never hold. It's been 18 months now since that Christmas table. 18 months since Brian publicly declared I didn't deserve a gift. Since Ashley laughed at my humiliation. Brian and I have had no contact. I don't call. Don't text. Don't try to reach out. Emma is 6 months old now. I'll never know her. Never watch her grow up. never be her grandmother. Because my son chose to believe lies over truth, chose Ashley's narrative over our actual history, chose public humiliation and permanent estrangement over having a relationship with his mother. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 68 years old. I raised my son alone after his father died, worked 2 jobs, sacrificed everything, put him through college, helped him start his business. And at a Christmas table full of witnesses, he told me I didn't deserve a gift. His wife laughed. And now I'm excluded from his life and my granddaughter's life entirely. This isn't a story about reconciliation. It's a story about surviving public humiliation, about grieving people who are still alive, about learning to live with the knowledge that love and sacrifice don't guarantee anything. I don't know if Brian will ever realize what he's done, if he'll ever question Ashley's narrative, if he'll ever want me in his life again. All I know is I can't wait for that. Can't build my life around the hope of his return. I have friends, purpose, activities that bring meaning. It's not the life I wanted, but it's the life I have. If this story resonates, if you've been publicly humiliated by your children, had your history rewritten, been excluded from grandchildren's lives, share this. Comment. Let others know they're not alone. And subscribe to Lindsay Stories, because these painful truths need to be told. Silence protects people who abuse us. Thank you for witnessing my story, for making space for pain that has no resolution. That Christmas table broke me, but I'm still here, still surviving. That's everything. What I haven't fully explained yet is what it's like to live with public humiliation, the way it replays in your mind, the way you can't stop wondering who else knows, who else is talking about it, who else believes the lies. After that Christmas dinner, I became hyper-aware everywhere I went. At the grocery store, I'd wonder if people had heard. At church, I'd notice whispered conversations and assume they were about me. Walking through my neighborhood, I'd imagine everyone knew about the mother whose son publicly rejected her. Paranoia isn't rational. I knew most people didn't know and wouldn't care. But shame makes you feel like everyone's watching. Everyone's judging. Everyone knows your humiliation. Dr. Martinez called it public shame trauma. When humiliation happens privately, you can sometimes contain it, she explained. But when it happens in front of witnesses, especially when it's at a social event where the witnesses are connected to each other, it spreads. People talk. The story gets retold, and you lose control of your own narrative. That's exactly what happened. Through Jean and other people who knew both families, I'd hear fragments of what was being said. Did you hear about Margaret Hayes? Apparently, she showed up uninvited to her son's Christmas and made a huge scene. And I heard she's been stalking Brian and Ashley. That's why he had to cut her off. Ashley said Margaret was never really a good mother, always neglectful. Brian's just finally standing up to her. Lies. All of it lies. But repeated enough times by confident people, lies become truth in the public mind. I wanted to defend myself, wanted to tell everyone what really happened. But Dr. Martinez was clear. Don't engage with gossip. You can't control what people say. And trying to defend yourself makes you look defensive, which often backfires. So I stayed silent, let people believe what they wanted, and tried to build a life where their opinions didn't matter. But it's hard. So hard. Because humans are social creatures. We care what people think. And knowing that strangers believe terrible things about you, things that aren't true, eats away at you. The support group I joined in August became essential. 8 people, all dealing with estrangement from adult children, all carrying stories of being vilified, excluded, erased. My daughter tells people I was emotionally abusive, a woman named Patricia shared. I wasn't. I was strict, yes. But abusive? Never. Yet that's her story. And it spread through her entire social circle. My son claims I chose my career over him, another man said. I worked to support our family. My wife stayed home. But now he says I was never there. And his wife reinforces it. They've created this narrative where I'm the absent, uncaring father. Story after story of adult children rewriting history, often with new spouses encouraging or creating these narratives, turning loving parents into monsters to justify exclusion. Why do they do this? I asked the group facilitator, a therapist named Dr. Owens. Several reasons, she said. Sometimes it's genuine. They've processed their childhood through therapy or other experiences and have come to different conclusions than you about what happened. Sometimes it's manipulation by a spouse who wants to isolate their partner. Sometimes it's just easier to have a villain than to admit they're choosing distance for selfish reasons. How do you know which it is? You often can't. But the result is the same. You're estranged from someone you love based on a version of reality you don't recognize. That described my situation perfectly. Brian's version of our past was unrecognizable to me. The negligent, guilt-tripping mother he described wasn't me. At least I didn't think it was. But doubt crept in. Had I been too focused on work? Had I made him feel responsible for my happiness after Tom died? Had I guilt-tripped him without realizing it? Dr. Martinez helped me work through this. Self-reflection is healthy, but accepting false accusations isn't. You worked hard to provide for Brian after your husband died. That's not neglect. You wanted a relationship with him. That's not manipulation. Don't let his rewritten history make you doubt what you know is true. But doubt is insidious. Once planted, it grows. In September, I went through old photos, pictures of Brian's childhood, him at school events, birthday parties, graduations, me at every single one, smiling, proud. I found cards he'd made me over the years. To the best mom in the world, thank you for everything. I love you, Mom. Evidence that our relationship had been good, that I'd been present, that he'd valued me once. I showed them to Dr. Martinez. This proves it wasn't how he's describing it, right? It proves your memory is accurate, she said gently. But Margaret, you don't need to prove anything. The people who matter, who actually know your character, don't need proof, and the people who believe Ashley's version won't be convinced by evidence. She was right, but I still kept those photos. Cards. Evidence of a truth that no longer mattered to the only person I needed to believe it. October brought an unexpected encounter. I was at a coffee shop when Ashley's mother, Susan, walked in. She saw me, looked away quickly, pretended not to notice me, but she had to walk past my table to order. I made a decision. Susan, I said as she passed. She stopped, looked uncomfortable. Oh, Margaret. Hello. Can we talk? Just for a minute? She glanced around like she might refuse, then sat down stiffly. I only have a minute. I want you to know what actually happened at your Christmas dinner. Brian invited me. I didn't crash, and what he said to me, the way he humiliated me, it wasn't justified. I've never done the things he accused me of. Susan's face remained neutral. I'm sure this is hard for you. I raised him alone after his father died, worked 2 jobs, put him through college, gave him money to start his business, and he stood up in front of everyone and said I didn't deserve a gift, that I made his childhood miserable. It's not true. Everyone has different perspectives on their childhood. This isn't perspective. It's lies. And Ashley has been spreading more lies, saying I crashed your dinner, saying I was inappropriate. I'm asking you, as someone who was there, to tell the truth about what happened. Susan stood up. Margaret, I don't want to be in the middle of this. It's between you and Brian. I'm sorry you're hurting, but I support my daughter and her husband. Whatever issues you have with them, I'm not getting involved. She walked away, ordered her coffee, left without looking back. And I understood. Susan knew the truth. She'd witnessed it. But she was choosing her family over honesty, choosing to protect Ashley's version even though she knew it was false. That's what people do. Choose sides. And I was on the wrong side. November arrived. Another Thanksgiving approaching. This one would be Emma's first. My granddaughter's first Thanksgiving, and I wouldn't be there. I saw the photos later on social media. Emma in a little turkey outfit. Brian holding her. Ashley's whole family gathered around. Emma's first Thanksgiving with her family. Her family. As if I wasn't part of that. Carol invited me to her family's Thanksgiving. I accepted. Her daughter and grandchildren were there. Watching Carol with her grandchildren hurt in ways I couldn't explain. She got to be a grandmother. Got to hold babies and make memories and be part of their lives. While my granddaughter was being raised by people who'd been told I was toxic. I'm sorry, Carol said quietly, noticing my face. It's not your fault. I'm happy for you. Really, it hurts to see what I'm missing. I know. I can't imagine. No one could. Unless they'd lived it. The specific pain of having a grandchild exist in the world while being explicitly forbidden from knowing them. December approached. Another Christmas. Another anniversary of that awful dinner. I decided not to celebrate this year. No tree, no decorations. Just another day to get through. But on December 20th, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Margaret. This is Claire, Brian's cousin, Tom's side. I heard about what happened last Christmas and wanted you to know that's not okay. Brian's father would be ashamed of how he's treating you. If you need anything, I'm here." I stared at that text. Claire, Tom's niece, someone from my late husband's family reaching out. I called her. "Claire, thank you for reaching out. I've been wanting to for months," she said, "but I didn't know if you'd want to hear from me. I only found out recently what Brian did. My mom told me. She's horrified." "Your mom knows?" "The whole family knows. Ashley's been telling her version, that you crashed and were inappropriate. But my mom talked to someone who was actually there. They told her what Brian really said, how he attacked you publicly, how Ashley laughed. And people believe that version? Some do. Some believe Ashley's. Most don't know what to think. But Margaret, I want you to know, our family remembers how you raised Brian, how hard you worked after Uncle Tom died. We know you were a good mother, and what Brian's doing is wrong." I cried. Having someone from Tom's family, someone who'd known us when Brian was young, validate my truth meant everything. "Thank you," I whispered. "You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner. I'm sorry Brian's doing this to you. And I'm sorry about Emma. You should be able to know your granddaughter." We talked for an hour. She told me more about what different family members were saying. Apparently, Tom's side of the family was divided. Some sympathizing with me, some staying neutral, none supporting Brian's actions. It didn't change anything, but it helped. Helped to know that not everyone believed the lies, that some people remembered the truth. Christmas Day came. I volunteered at a homeless shelter again, served meals, talked to people who had nowhere to go, and I thought about privilege. Brian and Ashley were spending Christmas in their beautiful home with their baby, surrounded by family and comfort, completely unaware of, or uncaring about, the pain they'd caused. While I served soup to homeless veterans and tried to find meaning in a holiday that had been destroyed for me, there's no justice in that. No fairness, just reality. In January, I made a decision. I was going to write Brian a letter, not to beg him to reconsider, not to defend myself, but to set the record straight for myself, to say everything I needed to say, even if he never read it or didn't care. I wrote for 3 days, edited for 2 more. The final letter was 5 pages, single-spaced. I detailed our history, specific memories he couldn't deny, times I'd been there, sacrifices I'd made, evidence that his version of our past was false. I addressed his accusations directly, explained why I'd worked so much to support us, why I'd sometimes seemed sad, grief over losing Tom, why I'd wanted to be part of his life, love, not manipulation. I acknowledged where I might have failed, times I'd been too busy, moments I'd been imperfect, because I wasn't claiming to be a perfect mother, just refuting the idea that I'd been a terrible one. And I told him about the impact of his actions, the public humiliation, the lies being spread, the exclusion from Emma's life, the grief of losing him while he was still alive. I ended with this. I don't expect this letter to change anything. I don't expect you to believe me or apologize or want me in your life. I'm writing this because I need to speak my truth, even if you never acknowledge it. I love you. I always will. But I can't keep hoping for a relationship you've made clear you don't want. I'm letting go, not because I don't care, but because I have to survive this. I hope someday you'll question the narrative you've accepted, but if you don't, I've said what I needed to say. Goodbye, Brian. I mailed the letter, felt simultaneously relieved and devastated. 2 weeks passed. No response. I hadn't really expected one. Then, on February 14th, Valentine's Day of all days, I got an email from Brian. "Mom, I got your letter. I read it. I appreciate you sharing your perspective, but it doesn't change how I feel. My memories are my memories. My experience is valid even if it's different from yours. I'm not the villain in your story, and you're not the victim. We just don't work as family anymore. I need you to accept that and stop trying to change my mind. I wish you well, but this is goodbye. Please don't contact me again. Brian. I read that email probably 20 times, trying to find something in it. Some acknowledgement, some crack in his certainty. There was none. He'd dismissed everything, framed it as differing perspectives rather than acknowledging facts, and he'd made it clear there would be no reconciliation. This was final. I showed it to Dr. Martinez. What do I do with this? You accept it, as painful as that is. He's telling you clearly that he's done. You can't change that. You can only decide how you'll live with it. How do I live with it? One day at a time, with grief that comes and goes, with a life that has meaning beyond him. It's not what you wanted, but it's what is. So that's what I've been doing, living with it, building a life that doesn't require Brian's presence or approval. I volunteer regularly now, tutor kids at the local library, serve meals at the shelter twice a month, work in community garden on weekends. I've made new friends through these activities, people who know me as Margaret, not as Brian's mother who was rejected, just Margaret, a person with value independent of my failed relationship with my son. And I've started to heal, slowly, painfully, but healing nonetheless. There are still hard days, birthdays, holidays, random moments when something reminds me of Brian and the pain crashes over me fresh. But there are also good days, days where I laugh with friends, days where I feel purposeful, days where I'm grateful for the life I have, even though it's not the life I wanted. Emma will turn 1 year old this May. I'll never meet her, never watch her grow, never be her grandmother in any meaningful way. That grief is ongoing, permanent, unresolvable, but I can't let it consume me. Can't spend my life mourning what I've lost while missing what I still have. I have health, friends, purpose, autonomy, a life that, while scarred, still has beauty in it. That's not nothing. That's survival. And some days, survival is enough. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 68 years old. At a Christmas table 18 months ago, my son publicly humiliated me, said I didn't deserve a gift, accused me of making his childhood miserable while his wife laughed. Since then, I've been excluded from his life and my granddaughter's life, been slandered publicly, been forced to grieve people who are still alive, and I've survived it. Not perfectly, not without scars, but survived. This isn't a story about happy endings. It's a story about endurance, about finding meaning after devastating loss, about building a life from whatever remains when someone you love destroys what you thought you had. If this resonates with you, if you've been publicly humiliated, had your history rewritten, been excluded from grandchildren's lives based on lies, share this story, comment with your experience, let others know they're not alone in this specific, brutal pain, and subscribe to Lindsay Stories, because these truths need to be told. Silence protects people who abuse us, and we're done being silent. Thank you for witnessing my story, for making space for pain that has no resolution. That Christmas table shamed me, but I'm still here, still standing, still finding reasons to live. That's everything. Before I close this story, there are some final truths I need to share, things that might help someone else walking this same devastating path. The first truth: public humiliation creates a specific kind of trauma that's different from private hurt. When someone hurts you privately, in a phone call, in a private conversation, you can process it in your own time. You can tell people or not tell people. You control the narrative of what happened. But when someone humiliates you publicly in front of witnesses, you lose that control. The story spreads, gets retold, gets distorted, and you can never fully reclaim your own narrative. Every person at that Christmas dinner has their own version of what happened. Some probably saw it as Brian finally standing up to his difficult mother. Some probably felt uncomfortable but didn't want to get involved. Some probably whispered about it later, adding their own interpretations. And I'll never know what any of them really thought. Never be able to correct their impressions. Never have the chance to tell my side to most of them. That loss of control over your own story is its own trauma. And it doesn't end when the event ends. It echoes forward, affecting how you interact with the world, how you trust people, how you present yourself. Dr. Martinez helped me understand this. Public trauma is witnessed trauma, and being witnessed in your most vulnerable, humiliated moment changes how you see yourself and how you imagine others see you. That's why I became hyper-aware in public spaces, why I'd scan rooms for people who might have heard, why I'd avoid certain neighborhoods where Ashley's family or friends might be, because I'd been seen at my lowest, and I couldn't undo that. The second truth, being gaslit about your own history is deeply destabilizing. Brian didn't just reject me, he rewrote our entire past. Claimed I was neglectful when I'd worked myself to exhaustion to support him, claimed I guilt-tripped him when I'd only wanted a relationship, claimed his childhood was miserable when I had evidence, photos, cards, memories, that it wasn't. And he stated these lies with such confidence, such certainty, like he genuinely believed them. That makes you question your own memory, your own reality. If he believes it so strongly, could he be right? Could my memory be wrong? Could I have been negligent without realizing it? Dr. Martinez was clear. This is gaslighting. Whether he's doing it consciously or whether he's genuinely convinced himself of a false history, the effect is the same. You're being told that your reality isn't real. That's profoundly destabilizing. I spent months working through this, looking at evidence, talking to people who'd known us then, confirming that my memory was accurate, that I hadn't been a perfect mother. No one is. But I hadn't been the monster Brian was describing. That confirmation from outside sources, from Claire, from Carol, from old neighbors who remembered us, was essential to maintaining my grip on reality. Because when someone you love insists that your shared history is completely different from how you remember it, it shakes everything, makes you doubt not just that specific past, but your ability to perceive reality at all. The third truth, you can't force someone to acknowledge truth they're invested in denying. I tried everything, provided evidence, shared memories, wrote detailed letters, had other people try to talk to Brian. Nothing worked. Because Brian didn't want to acknowledge the truth. The version of our history he'd accepted, whether Ashley created it or he created it himself, served him. It justified his exclusion of me, made him the victim instead of the aggressor, allowed him to reject me without feeling guilty. Accepting the truth would mean admitting he'd been cruel to someone who'd sacrificed for him, that he'd publicly humiliated someone who'd loved him, that he'd excluded me from Emma's life based on lies. That's too uncomfortable, so he won't do it. Dr. Owens from the support group explained it this way. Some people would rather maintain a false narrative than deal with the guilt of admitting they've been wrong, especially if admitting it would require changing their current behavior. In Brian's case, reconnecting with you, the psychological cost is too high. I had to accept that, had to stop hoping that the right words or the right evidence would break through. Because there were no right words. No amount of evidence would matter to someone who didn't want to see it. The fourth truth, estrangement from adult children is epidemic and massively underreported. Before this happened, I thought I was alone. Thought maybe I really was a terrible mother if my son didn't want me in his life. But through the support group, through research, through talking to Dr. Martinez and Dr. Owens, I learned. This is happening to millions of parents. Estrangement from adult children has increased dramatically in recent years. Some estimates suggest 1 in 4 parents over 65 is estranged from at least one adult child. 1 in 4. That's massive. But nobody talks about it. Because there's shame attached. Because society assumes if your child doesn't want you, you must have done something terrible. Because parents are supposed to protect their children even when those children are adults making choices that devastate them. So we suffer silently, carry the grief privately, hide the humiliation. But the more I talked to other estranged parents, the more I saw patterns. The same stories repeated. Adult children influenced by controlling spouses. History being rewritten. Accusations that didn't match reality. Public rejections designed to humiliate. We weren't all terrible parents who deserved this. We were parents who'd loved imperfectly, like all parents, and were being punished disproportionately for that imperfection. The fifth truth, grief over losing living family members doesn't end. You just learn to carry it differently. When Tom died, I grieved intensely for about 2 years. Then the grief lessened. Became something I carried, but that didn't consume me. Eventually, I could think about him with love instead of only pain. But grief over Brian is different, because he's not dead. He's out there, living his life, raising my granddaughter. The loss isn't final in the way death is final. It's ongoing, renewable, every holiday, every milestone, every photo I see of Emma. And there's no closure, no funeral, no ritual, no point where I can say, this is over now. Dr. Martinez called it ambiguous loss, loss without finality, grief without resolution. You'll have waves, she said, times when the grief is overwhelming, times when you've mostly adapted, but it won't end. You'll just learn to function alongside it. She was right. Some days I go hours without thinking about Brian. I'm engaged in my life, present with my friends, focused on my activities, and then something triggers it. A son with his mother at the grocery store, a friend talking about her grandchildren, a holiday approaching, and the grief crashes over me fresh, like it just happened. I've learned to ride those waves, to feel them without being destroyed by them. To recognize that grief recurring doesn't mean I'm not healing. It just means I'm human. 6 months ago, something unexpected happened. Ashley's brother contacted me through Facebook. His message was brief. Hi, Margaret. I'm Todd, Ashley's brother. I was at that Christmas dinner 2 years ago. I've thought about it a lot since. What Brian said to you was wrong. I'm sorry I didn't say anything at the time. I want you to know that not everyone there thought it was okay. I stared at that message for an hour before responding. Finally, I wrote back, "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. Can I ask, what did you actually hear that night? Because Ashley's been telling people I crashed and caused a scene." He responded, "That's not what happened. You were invited. You brought a gift. Brian opened it and then went on this long speech about how you didn't deserve gifts and were a terrible mother. It was uncomfortable as hell. A lot of people were shocked. And yes," Ashley laughed, "I saw that too. Has Ashley told people I crashed? She's told our family her version, that you showed up unexpectedly, were inappropriate, and that Brian had to set boundaries. My parents believe her version, but I was there. I know what I saw. Why are you telling me this now? Because I have kids of my own now, and I can't imagine ever treating my mother the way Brian treated you. What I witnessed has bothered me for 2 years. I needed to tell you that you weren't crazy, that what happened was wrong." We messaged back and forth for a while. Todd shared more about Ashley, how she'd always been controlling, how she needed to be the center of Brian's world, how she'd isolated him from several friends before they married. "I love my sister," he said, "but she has issues with sharing people she cares about. She wanted Brian all to herself, and making you the villain was how she achieved that." Having Ashley's own brother confirm this validated everything I'd suspected. It didn't change anything practically. Brian was still gone. Emma was still kept from me. But it confirmed I wasn't crazy, wasn't making excuses. The manipulation had been real. 4 months ago, I did something I'd been avoiding. I started writing this all down, not as a letter to Brian, not as a defense, but as a record, a testament to what actually happened. I wrote about our life before Ashley, the good years, the closeness, the mutual love and support. I wrote about the gradual change, how Ashley's influence shifted things, how I was slowly excluded. I wrote about that Christmas dinner in brutal detail, every word Brian said, the look on Ashley's face, the witnesses who saw. I wrote about the aftermath, the lies, the estrangement, Emma, the ongoing grief. When I finished, I had 80 pages. My truth, documented. Not for Brian, he wouldn't read it. Not for public consumption, just for myself. And maybe for Emma, if she ever wants to know her grandmother's side of the story. I gave a copy to Claire, Tom's niece. "Keep this," I told her. "If Emma ever asks about me, if she ever wants to know why I wasn't in her life, give her this. Let her read my side." Claire promised she would. I hope she does ask someday. I hope she wants to know you. Me too. But if she doesn't, at least the truth exists somewhere. 3 months ago, I saw Brian and Ashley at a restaurant. They didn't see me. I was leaving as they were arriving. But I saw them. Brian looked the same, maybe a little older. Ashley was laughing at something he said. They looked happy. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not longing. Just a distant sort of observation. like seeing people I used to know. That was when I realized I'd actually started to let go. Not completely, but enough. Enough that seeing them didn't devastate me. Enough that I could observe their happiness without it destroying mine. Dr. Martinez had told me this would happen. One day you'll realize they don't have the power over you they used to have, that the grief has become manageable, that you've built a life that has meaning independent of them. I think I'm there, or close to there. Most days anyway. I still love Brian, probably always will. He's my son, but I've accepted that he's not the person I thought he was, or he's changed into someone I don't recognize. Either way, the son I raised is gone, and Emma will grow up not knowing me. She'll be told some version of why, probably Ashley's version. Maybe someday she'll question it. Maybe she'll reach out. Maybe not. I can't control that. Can only hope that the truth I've preserved will matter someday. 2 months ago, Carol suggested I consider dating. You're 68, not 98. There's still life to live. Maybe with someone who actually values you. I laughed. I don't think I'm ready for that. Maybe not now. But Margaret, you deserve to be loved. To have someone choose you. To matter to someone. She was right. But the thought of being vulnerable with someone new, of risking hurt again, felt impossible. Maybe someday, I said. But right now, I'm still learning to be okay alone. Being okay alone is important, she agreed. But so is being open to not being alone someday. I'm working on that. Working on not letting Brian's rejection make me believe I'm unlovable. Not letting Ashley's lies make me doubt my worth. Not letting this trauma define my entire future. It's hard. The wound is deep. The trust is shattered. But I'm trying. 1 month ago, Emma turned 2. I saw the birthday party photos on social media. A huge celebration. Princesses. Ponies. Dozens of children. I felt the familiar ache. The grief of missing milestones. Of not being part of her life. But I also felt acceptance. This is what is. Emma will turn 3, 4, 5 without me. She'll go to school, make friends, grow up, and I won't be there. That's the reality I've chosen to accept, rather than spend my life fighting an unchangeable situation. Last week, I had coffee with a woman from the support group, Anna. Her daughter has refused contact for 7 years. Hasn't met Anna's grandchildren. Does it get easier? I asked her. Different, she said. Not easier, just different. The acute pain fades. What's left is more like chronic background grief, always there, but manageable. Do you still hope for reconciliation? Some days, but mostly I've accepted it won't happen. My daughter has built a narrative where I'm the villain. Changing that would require her to admit she was wrong, to feel guilty for keeping her kids from me. She won't do that. So I've stopped hoping and started living. Do you regret that? Giving up hope? No. Hope was killing me, keeping me stuck. Giving up hope let me move forward. It's not giving up on her. It's giving up on the fantasy that she'll change. I understood that completely. Hope had kept me stuck for 2 years. Giving it up, accepting reality, had been devastating, but also freeing. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 68 years old. 2 years ago, my son publicly humiliated me at a Christmas table, declared I didn't deserve a gift, rewrite our history, while his wife laughed. Since then, I've been estranged completely, been excluded from my granddaughter's life, been slandered publicly, been gaslit about my own past. And I've survived it, built a life that has meaning, found community with other people who've lost their children to estrangement, learned to carry grief without being consumed by it. This isn't a story about reconciliation or redemption. It's a story about survival, about learning to live with devastating loss, about building something from nothing when everything you thought you had has been destroyed. I don't know if Brian will ever realize what he's done, if he'll ever question Ashley's narrative, if Emma will ever want to know me. All I know is I can't wait for those things. Can only live the life I have in the present. And that life, while scarred and smaller than I'd hoped, still has value, still has love in it, still has purpose. That's enough. It has to be. If this story resonates with you, if you've been publicly humiliated by your children, had your history rewritten, been excluded from grandchildren based on lies, know you're not alone. Share this story. Comment with your experience. Subscribe to Lindsay's Stories, because these truths need to be told, because public shame thrives in silence, because we're done protecting people who've hurt us. Thank you for witnessing my story, for making space for pain that may never fully heal. That Christmas table tried to break me, but I'm still here, still finding reasons to live, still surviving. That's everything. One final thought before I close this chapter. To anyone experiencing this right now, sitting with the fresh wound of public humiliation, replaying cruel words spoken in front of witnesses, wondering how someone you loved could do this to you, I need you to hear something. It's not your fault. Even if you weren't a perfect parent, and none of us are, you didn't deserve to be humiliated publicly. You didn't deserve to have your history rewritten. You didn't deserve to be made the villain in someone else's story. Public shaming is a choice, a deliberate act. Whether it's calculated manipulation or an emotional outburst, the person who does it bears responsibility for that choice. Brian chose to stand up at that Christmas table and attack me in front of 30 people. He could have had that conversation privately, could have expressed his grievances without an audience, could have excluded me from his life without publicly destroying me first. He chose the public humiliation. That was his choice, not mine. And if your child has done something similar, if you've been attacked at a family dinner, excluded publicly, had your parenting questioned in front of witnesses, that was their choice too, not yours. You may have made mistakes as a parent. We all do. But mistakes don't justify cruelty. Imperfect parenting doesn't justify public humiliation. Don't let anyone convince you that you deserved this. You didn't. The second thing I need you to hear: you will survive this. Right now, in the acute phase of public shame, it feels unsurvivable. The humiliation is overwhelming. The betrayal is devastating. The loss of control over your own narrative is terrifying. But I promise you, you will survive it. You'll have moments of overwhelming grief, days when leaving the house feels impossible, times when the shame crashes over you so hard you can't breathe. But those moments will gradually space out. The grief will become more manageable. The shame will lose its sharp edges. And one day, you'll realize hours have passed without thinking about it. Then days. Then weeks. It doesn't mean you've forgotten. Doesn't mean you're healed completely. Just means you've learned to function alongside the wound. You've adapted, survived, and that survival matters. It's not nothing. It's everything. The third thing: you deserve to tell your truth, not to convince anyone, not to change anyone's mind, but because your truth matters. Your version of events deserves to exist, even if the people who hurt you never acknowledge it. Write it down. Tell trusted friends. Say it out loud in therapy or support groups. Document it for yourself or for future generations. Your truth has value independent of whether anyone believes it or validates it. I wrote 80 pages because I needed to. Because the truth deserved to exist on paper, not just in my increasingly doubtful memory. Because Emma might want it someday, or she might not. But it exists either way, and that matters. Finally, you're allowed to let go. This might be the hardest truth of all. You're allowed to stop hoping, allowed to stop fighting, allowed to accept that some relationships end even when both people are still alive. Letting go isn't giving up on your child. It's giving up on the fantasy that they'll change. Accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it were. It's choosing your own survival over endless hope that destroys you. For 2 years, I hoped Brian would realize what he'd done, would question Ashley's narrative, would want me back in his life. That hope kept me stuck, kept me from building a real life, kept me in this painful limbo of waiting for something that wasn't coming. Letting go of that hope was like a death. I grieved it, mourned the future I'd been holding on to, but it also freed me to live in the present, to build something real instead of waiting for something that might never happen. You're allowed to do that too. Allowed to say, I can't wait anymore. Allowed to build a life that doesn't depend on their return. It's not giving up on love. It's choosing self-preservation. And you deserve that. You deserve to survive, to heal as much as possible, to find meaning and joy in whatever time you have left, even if it's without your child. My name is Margaret Hayes. 2 years ago, my son shamed me at a Christmas table, said I didn't deserve a gift, destroyed me in front of witnesses while his wife laughed. I survived it. Barely. Painfully. But I survived. And if you're going through this now, you'll survive too. Not perfectly. Not without scars. But you'll survive. Share this story if it helps you feel less alone. Comment if you've lived this nightmare. Subscribe to Lindsay Stories to keep these necessary conversations alive. Because public shame thrives in silence. Family abuse continues when we don't talk about it. And we're done being silent to protect people who've hurt us. Thank you for being here, for witnessing, for caring about truth, even when it's painful. That Christmas table was 2 years ago. But I'm still here, still standing, still finding reasons to wake up every day. And that's victory, even if it doesn't look how I thought it would. That's everything. And to Brian, if somehow this reaches you, if Emma shows it to you someday, or if someone shares it, I want you to know something. I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay. Not because the pain has disappeared. But because holding on to anger was poisoning me. Not you. You were wrong. What you said at that Christmas table was cruel and untrue. The way you've excluded me from Emma's life is unjust. The lies Ashley spread were damaging. But you're still my son. And I still love you, even though I can't have a relationship with you. I hope someday you'll question the narrative you've accepted. I hope you'll look at the evidence, the photos, the cards, the memories that contradict the story you've told yourself. I hope Emma asks about me. And I hope you'll be honest with her about why I'm not in her life. But if none of those things happen, if you never question, if Emma never asks, if our estrangement is permanent, I'll survive that too. Because I've learned something these past 2 years. I am more than someone's mother, more than someone's relationship, more than the roles other people assign me. I'm Margaret. And I have value that exists independent of whether you recognize it. I wish you well, Brian. I wish you happiness. I wish you peace. And I wish Emma the wisdom to question, the courage to seek truth, and the opportunity to know all her family someday. But those wishes don't control my life anymore. Don't define my worth. Don't determine my happiness. I'm free of that now. Free to build something that doesn't require your participation or approval. And that freedom, hard-won and painful as it was, is the gift I gave myself when I finally let you go. Goodbye, Brian. I'll always love you. But I'm done waiting for you to love me back. To everyone still here, thank you. Your presence, your witness, your willingness to hear hard truths. It matters more than you know. We survive these stories together. We heal by sharing them. We reclaim power by refusing to hide our pain. Keep telling your truth. Keep surviving. Keep building lives that have meaning beyond the people who left. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive or too demanding or any of the things people said to make you doubt your worth. You're survivors. And your survival is enough. That's everything.